Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because it's time to go Joe with this rather handsome thing. It's the latest Transformers G.I. Joe collaborative project. It's the Triple T Cup. And I know I say this all the time, but I'm tremendously excited for this one because these collaborative toys have been generally pretty great by my estimation. And I hear that this one's pretty good too, so let's find out. Now today's review is brought to you by TF Source, so you will find a link to their site in the description below and you can check them out for all your Transformers needs. First things first, I can't say enough nice things about this box. I mean, I absolutely adore this kind of blended style of the G.I. Joe Transformers collab boxes. I think they've done a brilliant job. Love the way they split down the side. Adore the artwork. Honestly, it's just like a true love letter to both brands, and I think that's what these toys do really well overall. Now to get this thing open, we need to cut the tape down the middle here, and that then allows you to slide apart the two halves like so, revealing the inner box. Very clever. Then if we flip this lid up, we'll be able to see the contents, including the toy itself. And then we can go ahead and get rid of these little plastic ties holding him down. Try and get him out of there. Freedom. There we go. Mustn't forget these bits. Looks like we've got some wheels for the side of the Triple T. Then if we get rid of this inner bit of cardboard, you can see the two G.I. Joes included here. We've got Leatherneck and Sgt Slaughter, along with some additional accessories in a little bag. Let's see what we got here. I think it's going to be guns, isn't it? Now before we check out Cup, we need to flip his little feet out here so he can stand up. And then we want to attach these tread pieces to the sides of his backpack like so. Some assembly required. Anyway, with that done, here we have Cup right out of the box, and honestly, I think he looks stellar. Super chunky, super big as well. Like I really feel like people often underestimate the size of these G.I. Joe collaborative figures because they are pretty huge. Needless to say, I mean, we'll do some comparisons, but yeah, he's big and he just looks so much fun. And you know, I've heard some people say that this looks like the most solid effort in this G.I. Joe collaborative line so far. I don't know if I necessarily think that's true, not because this doesn't look solid, but just because I actually think they've all been kind of solid up until now. And this is, if anything, just continuing that trend. I've enjoyed all of the figures in this range, and honestly, I think this guy just looks excellent as well. Head sculpts on Cup toys can vary a little bit. Like I sometimes feel like they don't quite get the likeness right, but this one, to my eye anyway, looks really, really good. Maybe a little bit pouty if anything, but I still think it captures the likeness of the character beautifully, and I have to say I'm really glad that they didn't give him the cigar that is very common to kind of see in Cup interpretations these days. I just think it looks a little bit cleaner without it, so I think this looks really good. Fair to say he looks pretty chunky around the chest region here, and I'm sure some people are going to have something to say about this big old USA logo. I mean, it does look kind of strange on a Transformers, so proudly displayed like that, but hey, it's a statement if anything. You're going to see a lot of other little tampos around as well. You've got the G.I. Joe logo, Sgt Slaughter written here, United States, all going on. Also got a nice tampoed Autobot logo on the left shoulder just here, and I really like these bits actually. Worth talking about these little bits of plastic, which are very distinctly Cup shoulders, you know, like this little one bit of plastic. They didn't have to include that, but the fact that they did just makes it feel so much more Cup, so that's very appreciated. This little bit here is quite annoying. I think this is the gear stick from vehicle mode, if memory serves. It doesn't fold all the way back, so it just kind of sticks out either at the front or at the top, so yeah, could have been a little bit more elegant maybe. There's no getting over the fact that this is a very sizable backpack. Now, I don't mind it personally. I think it kind of works somehow, but yeah, some people are going to have something to say about that perhaps. You can remove these bits, I guess, if you really, really wanted to, but as I say, I don't mind it. I think it looks fine. Kind of cool how he has his classic Cup abs just going on here from the original toy and his animation model, so that is fun to see. Definitely appreciate some of the little paint applications going on here. You've got silver on areas such as the hands and these little yellow stripes, yellow in other areas as well, so that's quite nice. Something about this waist area looks a little bit undercooked to me. I don't know, I think it's these little tab slots just here in the crotch, and then almost like the way that the waist connects to the upper body doesn't look quite as cohesive as it maybe could, but it's not bad, but it's just, you know, something that drew my eye slightly. Legs themselves are fine. I mean, they're about 85% tank treads, which tends to be the case with a lot of tank style Transformers, but that's fine. And he does have ankle tilt, so I'm really pleased to report that because I was definitely not sure that was the case from some of the promotional photography, but absolutely ankle tilt is included. And you know, overall the first impressions on this thing are very, very solid. It's a lot of fun to handle seemingly, and just comes across well. Nicely presented, very chunky, kind of good fun spirit about it already, and I'm just looking forward to seeing everything it can do. First up, let's talk articulation. Now the head can rotate pretty freely from side to side, and it can look up and down as well. I mean, obviously for transformation it will come all the way down, but it will go a little bit backwards as well, so it's pretty good. You've got ratchets in the shoulders. It is slightly strange to see these pieces, as much as I do like them, that these are the bits that rotate, so when you bring the arm up that goes with it. Bit of a strange solution, but hey, not the end of the world. And the shoulders do move up and down quite freely as well, and you get a decent bicep swivel just there, and roughly about 90 degrees at the elbow. And I'm slightly surprised, but very pleased to see that there is a wrist swivel. Now there is a waist swivel as well, which interestingly is ratcheted. Similar story in the hips, which are ratcheted as well and will come to about just a little bit over 90 degrees, if anything, sort of 90 degrees. Now there is rotation in the thigh as well, thanks to that mushroom peg, so that's pretty good. And then you get ratchets again in the knees, just here. And it's a little bit strange how the knee bends, because if anything, it feels like the joint should be further out towards the knee, but it sort of sinks back in a little bit. But honestly, it looks fine all the same. And then as I mentioned, there is ankle tilt. You can just unclip this section here, actually. It does clip back in for transformation, or you just unclip it if you want to tilt the ankles, and there is a bit of articulation in the toes as well. All of which means he's not the most articulated transformer I've ever handled, but he has everything that you're going to need, right? Like all the basics are covered, he does pose pretty nicely, he's great fun to handle, feels super solid and kind of just chunky and stable and all of that good stuff. It's good fun, what can I say? Then if we turn our attention to his weapons, there's two sets. Firstly, this pair of twin blasters. Secondly, this little pair of missiles, which are mostly ornamental. They don't really do anything other than kind of sit on the vehicle mode, as we'll see, but still nice to have them. Now the twin blasters can peg into his hand, although it's a very snug fit, I've got to say. Still, once that's done, it gives him a little bit of firepower and kind of completes the look, if anything. I mean, I like the fact that he's got two of them. I always enjoy a bit of dual wielding, I don't know why. But yeah, they do look kind of cool. I guess what's kind of neat is that these are like a very recognizable part of the Triple T vehicle mode, you know, if you want to call it that. And you know, here to see them being handheld by Cup in this way, it's a nice touch. I like the way that they've kind of carried that over. What is quite cool is that there's also a bit of weapon storage back here for all the various bits, so you can just plug in the missiles on that little peg, like so, and then the guns will store away in that slot. And that's pretty neat, actually. Yeah, I kind of dig how that looks, all kind of pointing upwards. I mean, you will need to remove them if you want to use the kind of central feature of the backpack, which we're going to look at in just a minute, but still, I think this is a pretty neat solution. And, you know, it gives Cup a bit of a different silhouette from the front as well, so options. The other main inclusion here, of course, is the two G.I. Joe minifigures, and the fact that there's two of them really makes this set feel quite rounded out very nicely. Now, the original Triple T, when it was first released in 1986, only featured Sgt Slaughter and not Leatherneck. He was sold separately, but here you get both. And I love that they've gone with these original O-ring figure designs as well. So these are essentially reissues of the original toys in many ways, and I really think that adds something to the set as well. And they've kind of gone with the kind of vintage card design, a little homage to that. So if you like G.I. Joe in any way, and I know not everybody does, but if you do, this is pretty cool, right? Anyway, of course, it's about time to get these guys open as well and see what they're all about. There's no real way to do this and preserve the cards, so I guess you just got to go for it. Really a bit of a squeeze to get these guys out. Now, if you want to, then both these guys come with little stands that you can just put on the bottom of their feet. They just peg in for a bit of stability. To be honest, though, you don't really need it because they stand absolutely fine without it. And his Sgt Slaughter, I think he looks the business. Really nice colours, really nice paint. Just presented beautifully, to be honest. Quite nice and detailed, again, with a lot of little paint applications to kind of pick all of that out. I mean, I love the little necklace whistle thing, and the face sculpt looks really good with the mustache and the sunglasses. All very tidy, in my opinion. Now, he comes with this really cool little baton accessory, and again, the detail on this and the precision is superb. I mean, just look at the little moulding there. So nice. Little gold paint application at the top. Love this little ribbon hanging off the end there as well. So just fantastic. And again, similar story in the main figure, like the detail in the belt, the little gold belt buckle just there, the laces on the boots. It really looks good. And then here we have Leatherneck, who looks equally great. I mean, honestly, the paint on these things, I'm really blown away by it. It's just so nice, you know? But yeah, he comes with a little rifle, which actually doesn't have a lot of paint on it, to be fair. It's just molded in green, and a little plug-in backpack as well. So very cool. I mean, I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that his watch is painted like that. That's the level of detail that we're talking about here. Actually, maybe even more impressive is the bracelet on this hand. I mean, look at that. You can really kind of see the budget that's gone into these. They haven't scrimped on the paint applications at all, so just great work. And then here you can see all three of them together, and I adore how this looks. Honestly, I know not everybody's into this, but I've always really liked the idea of Transformers with drivers somehow, like the human element. I just think it adds something, a little bit of extra play value. It's been a thing since the beginning, you know, with like Diaclone and then Headmasters, and it has cropped up in various ways, but I think this G.I. Joe line does it so well. I really appreciate the fact that they included the classic O-ring figures with these. I just think it adds so much. Like, they could have gone a different route with it and done it in a different scale or whatever, but it just instantly makes these new releases feel so classic and desirable in their way. Now, the other really cool gimmick here is that they can interact with the robot mode as well. You don't have to wait for the vehicle mode to do this kind of thing, because if you pull down this little backpack section here, you'll see that there's kind of like a little cockpit at the back here, if anything, with a little platform for them to stand on. I mean, it's a bit random because it's just like two painted blue screens and some little dials back here. I know some people are going to take that as a sign that they're like controlling Cup somehow, and maybe they won't like that, but whatever. I think this is just cool, honestly. And then, as you might expect, you can just bring the figures back here and just peg them into place using the little holes in their feet, and they stand pretty stably. And yes, you can fit both of them on there, and it's maybe a little bit snug, but I don't know, actually, no, it works well. There's plenty of room and it looks fine. Like, what are they doing back there? We don't really know, but they're just hanging out, right? They're just army buds. They're doing what they do. Seriously though, this is a functionality I've really appreciated on all of these toys so far. The fact that the minifigures can interact with the robot modes as much as they can with the vehicle modes, I think is excellent, and a definite sign that the people making this line certainly know what they're doing with it, and that, you know, they've really thought about all angles. So very cool. And again, I know G.I. Joe may not be everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine, but I adore this lineup so far. And as someone that's always admired G.I. Joe vehicles and toys from afar, but never really had the kind of space or the resources for them to kind of manage along with my Transformers collection, this is perfect, honestly. Let's do more of it. And the same is true on the robot side. I think it's great that we're getting slightly more variation in characters now, because Cup is perhaps a little bit more of an unusual choice than like Bumblebee or Megatron or whatever else, you know, not quite the same tier of character, but whatever, these two guys look great together. And you know, I have to be honest that I think Bumblebee is still for me the weakest entry in this lineup so far, but I do look forward to more Autobots, and there's no doubt that these two toys display very nicely side by side. And then here you can see them with the two bad guy entries so far, Megatron and Soundwave, and honestly, I love all three of these figures very, very much. I know opinions vary a little bit on some of them, but I think they are top tier stuff. I've had such good fun with this range so far. I hope it continues, I really do, because I feel like the possibilities are endless, even if some of the toys are going to get absurdly large, like even more than what you see here, but it could just be a lot of fun, so fingers crossed, eh? And then here you can see him with the outrageously good Studio Series Optimus Prime review of this guy on the channel as well. And you know, when I talk about scale and I say how big these G.I. Joe crossover toys are, I think this will give you an idea of what it is that I'm talking about, right? Like, they are not small. And it's funny for me to consider, but apparently I have very few Cup toys. It's really just this new guy and my beloved G1 1986 original, which is still unstickered, as you can see, but this is a really fun comparison, and definitely a major size difference between these two, and a bit of a colour shift as well, but still really enjoyable to see. Overall then, there's lots of nice things to say about this robot mode. I'm super impressed with it, but that's only half the story, so let's go ahead and check out the transformation. Transformation done, and I gotta tell you, I love this process. I thought that was tons of fun. It all clips together really well. It's unusual, like I don't think I've particularly transformed anything like that ever before, and I always appreciate that about Transformers designs. And look at the result, it's just lovely. Like, it's very creative how these side panels come together, this whole side half, this back end here with the kind of arms folding down, the fact that this is the chest, and I don't know, it's like nothing I've seen, as I say, just very creative kind of use of the transformation and the way that it builds into like a humanoid body. Really cool, and just clips together so precisely. Now, the only slight caveat to that is this little panel here, the kind of back wheel section, the back tread section, because I did find that this gave me a bit of jip. Like, a couple of times this popped off as I was trying to kind of plug it into this kind of side of the body of the kind of tank mode or whatever. So that was a little bit annoying, not gonna lie. Some very memorable little moments though, like I really appreciate the way that this front section here kind of flips round, and the fact that this is kind of the abs, the cup abs in there. So that was really, really cool. Again, just quite different. And honestly, the result looks immaculate, like really solid, rolls really nicely, just feels like a G.I. Joe vehicle again. And that's what I think the real strength of this line is that the vehicle modes are basically replicas of the original G.I. Joe toys. Like, that is the Triple T. Might be the most cohesive one that we've seen so far in many ways, like completely free of compromise. Like, obviously if you come around to the underneath, then you're going to see some of the robot parts, you know, like the hands and things here, but again, it's all tucked in nicely, all tabbed away nicely, really good. Even from a rear angle here, you really can't see anything at the back there. It's honestly all very well hidden. Absolutely enamored with this thing. I can't say enough nice things about it. Just terrific vehicle mode. Now, of course, a lot of the green here has been hidden, so you get a lot more of this kind of off-white of the body, but it all looks really good, very cohesive, you know, no real kind of panel lines or anything like that to kind of break it up. Got these little tampos on full display, so that all looks great. Nice little silver paint applications on these sections here, all crisp and well applied. If anything, the only major tell that this isn't the vintage toy are these tampos just here, because whilst, yes, the original does have the USA flag and the USA logo just there, the writing, that's much smaller on the vintage toy, so, and kind of like slightly up here, whereas down here is just kind of blank space and obviously no panel line just there, but no Autobot logo as well. Strange choice to go with the Autobot logo, because that's not really been a very prominent thing on the 3 so far. They've not been like adorned with faction symbols or anything, so to see it here is strange, but I don't mind it. I mean, I would definitely prefer that it wasn't there, but I can live with it all the same. Obviously, we've got all these weapons in place now. These will move up and down, these little guns. The missiles are basically for show, as I said, when they just kind of sit there, but still they look really cool. Really though, the main interaction here is going to be with the minifigures again. Of course, you can pull down this back end, same as you could in the robot mode, and position them on here. Exactly the same as before. Just want to use that little peg hold just there, and they can kind of be like working the computer or whatever they're doing. Then of course you want to take your Sgt Slaughter or whoever, I guess, and put them in the little cockpit just here. And the idea would be to try and move their hand to kind of have it on that little gear stick just there, like so. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, when people say to me that they're not into these toys, or at the very least that they kind of can't appreciate what the enjoyment factor or the fun of them is, I'm really left a bit bewildered, because just look at this thing. Like, what is there not to like at the end of the day? Do you know what I mean? It works so well. And it's just, again, a really faithful recreation of the vintage toy. It's, even if you're not into G.I. Joe, I kind of feel like there's something here, but if you are, then there's that whole other level as well, where it just feels like such a worthy homage. Yeah, I've said a few times in this review that I think all of the toys in this line have been pretty good so far, but I gotta tell you, I think this is the best of the lot, in my opinion anyway. Like, it's just, I don't know, it just works so well. It's just such a lot of fun, and it does exactly what it sets out to achieve. Like, it's the real embodiment of what this line is supposed to be doing, and I hope that we get more on this level as well. In terms of comparisons here, you can see him with the Bumblebee or Striker, and I'm awe-stricken, what can I say? It just looks really, really good. I mean, again, if you're a G.I. Joe fan, this is going to mean a lot to you, and if you're not, what's not to love, eh? It's just 2 super cool vehicle modes, looking really good. And naturally, it's a similar story with the Decepticons as well. So you've got the Thunder Machine Soundwave and the Hiss Tank Megatron just here. And I have to commend them for doing some really interesting vehicle choices so far. Like, beyond the Hiss Tank, I don't know that I would have predicted any of these as like natural choices, but it does make me curious about what might be next. I think we're going to start straying into the kind of super large territory, which is going to be really interesting because these are big toys already, but I'm here for it, man. Like, bring it on. Like, for me, this is a line that just goes from strength to strength to strength. So whatever they do next, I'm intrigued for it. I hope we get an announcement soon. I've seen a few rumors swirling around, but whatever it is, if it's on the level of these guys, I can't wait for it, let's put it that way. As a final comparison though, here they are with my beloved 1990 Action Masters. And I know it's very silly, but I still maintain that they fit in really well as like vehicles from this original line somehow. Like, they almost slot right in. And of course, in this case, you can't actually fit the Action Masters inside the Triple T. Sadly, their feet are just too big, even though they are kind of the same size as the G.I. Joes, but still, I just love it. Anyway, suffice it to say, the Triple T Cup is a smash success. Like, I'm so enamored with this thing. Honestly, I love this line already. This is just the best of the lot so far, in my humble opinion, and it's a very definite toot. Now again, today's review is brought to you by TF Source. You will find a link to their site in the description below, and you can go ahead and check them out for all your Transformers needs. I'd also be very grateful if you could leave me a like for today's video, but otherwise, that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.